Well, yeah, that's right.
I know someone I'd like to introduce you to, if you're okay with it.
Suddenly, she made a phone call out of nowhere. After a while, there was a knock, and the door opened. My name is Michael Johnson. I'm a 24-year-old working at an IT startup. Startups might sound unstable, but I genuinely enjoy growing alongside the company every day. The company was founded by a woman named Kate Garcia. She's exceptionally beautiful and gives off an elegant vibe, her confidence and determination evident from her expression. She looks great in black suit pants, and the sound of her heels clicking as she walks is reminiscent of a famous actress.
She looks beautiful today, as always.
My colleague Paul remarked as he watched her. However, falling in love with her seems nearly impossible for anyone working at our company.
These documents have too many errors. Redo them now.
Today, like every other day, she sharply critiqued a new employee without mercy. She's known as the beautiful but fierce CEO. I've been with the company for 2 years, but I've rarely seen her smile.
I wonder if she has a boyfriend?
Paul asked me, but how would I know? She's supposedly 28, but her private life is shrouded in mystery. Maybe she's dating some rich guy. I joked back.
Hey guys. Talking behind her back again.
Paul and I turned around, startled by that voice. There was a woman with a cute appearance and bright eyes. Paul sighed heavily and said,
Oh, it's just you, Lily.
with a wry smile. Her name is Lily Garcia. She's Kate's sister, and we've known each other since college. Actually, I was introduced to this company through her. I became interested in this company when I was asked.
My sister is starting a company, so would you like to join me?
I also thought that the vision envisioned by Kate was interesting, so I decided to join this company. That's not the only reason though.
You shouldn't drool just because my sister is pretty.
Lily said as she pointed at my face. I quickly covered up, denying it. I'm not drooling at all. First of all,
What? Do you have someone you like? Who?
it's none of your business. Now, get back to work.
How boring.
She pouted as I shooed her away. I couldn't possibly say that the person I like is Lily. The main reason I joined this company was to work in the same place as her. But I've never mustered the courage to confess. I've been in love with her for 4 years now. As I sighed, wondering what to do, I caught Kate's eye. She glared at me, then walked over with her heels clicking, and slammed some documents down in front of me.
You'll be joining us for the upcoming business meeting, so please go over this material.
Yes, understood. Thanks to my programming skills honed since my student days, I believe I have a decent level of technical expertise. Therefore, I was able to produce results soon after joining this company, and now I occasionally receive direct assignments from Kate. I've even started participating in important business negotiations and decision-making meetings, which is indeed gratifying. However, lately, it feels like she has been particularly tough on me, or is it just me? I asked Paul, only to be teased.
Were you giving her the eye or something?
So, I just shrugged. Then, Lily was also called by her regarding the negotiation.
It's good to be proactive, but try to speak more politely.
Okay, I will.
Are you sure you're okay?
The two seem to get along well in their private lives, and although they treat each other in the same way at work, they're both still able to do their jobs quite well. I couldn't help but admire what truly competent sisters they are. A month later, Kate and I went to a business negotiation with a certain company. However, despite hours of discussion and deepening debate, our opinions remained at an impasse. In the end, we decided to drop the discussion this time. It's a common occurrence in sales, so both of us were prepared to leave with a smile. But then, Anthony, the president of the company, invited us out for drinks afterward. Though the negotiation fell through, he wanted to maintain a good relationship going forward. Kate eagerly agreed to join, but he dismissed me with a wave of his hand.
No, you're fine. Tonight I feel like drinking one-on-one with her.
Even Kate seemed perplexed by his words. Frankly, I found his behavior quite rude. But our company is in a precarious position, always a breath away from uncertainty. Maintaining connections with other businesses is crucial for us. Understood. I'll head back first then.
Yes, all right.
I made sure to leave without causing any awkwardness. However, I felt a bit uneasy. The leering gaze of him on her was unmistakably sleazy. Noticing the gaze, she forced a smile, clearly uncomfortable. I whispered to her, "I'll be at a nearby cafe working on some remaining tasks, so please contact me if you need anything." She looked surprised but quickly responded coolly with,
Okay.
"Perhaps it was unnecessary worry. After all, she's capable of taking care of herself and unlikely to drink too much." Still, I worked on the remaining tasks at a cafe near the restaurant where they had gone. It was nearly 10 p.m., and there was still no sign of them leaving the establishment. While idly watching outside, I noticed a man and woman stumbling out of the restaurant. Upon closer inspection, it was them. Kate seemed exhausted, with Anthony clinging to her, seemingly dragging her away against her will. Without thinking, I left the cafe and called out, "Kate." Then, she turned to me, even though she was in a daze.
Michael?
What's the matter with you, still loitering around here?
Anthony glared at me, but at that moment, I was quite emotional. "Why did you let her get so drunk?"
What's that? I only suggested it normally.
Stop, Michael. I'm okay.
She said that, but I didn't care and pulled her towards me anyway. I wanted to get her away from him as soon as possible. "What are you talking about? I told you to call me if anything happened. Why did you stay silent until you got like this?" When I said that, she weakly apologized with a,
I'm sorry.
I suddenly realized, what am I doing getting angry at her? After a moment of reflection, I turned back to Anthony. "From here on, I'll take responsibility and take care of her." Then, I gently placed her into the taxi I had called. "Are you okay? Do you feel sick?"
No, I'm fine, really. Thank you. And I'm really sorry for troubling you.
"Not at all. It's a relief that you are safe, huh?" At that moment, I felt a soft sensation spreading. I involuntarily held my breath. Because she had clung to me.
I'm sorry. I was a bit scared.
"Kate."
Just because I'm a woman, I was completely underestimated. It's frustrating. I've worked so hard, struggling every day to keep the company afloat.
During the taxi ride, she was throwing a tantrum like a child, buried her face in my chest and confided her daily struggles and worries to me. While listening to her, I nodded, thinking that she must be carrying a lot as a CEO. However, the conversation began to take a slightly strange turn.
I'm cold-hearted, right? Being with me is boring. I'm not cute at all.
"Kate."
I wish I was born a cute girl like Lily. Why am I like this even though we're sisters?
The alcohol must have been speaking, but I was definitely thrown off by the gap between this and her usual self. Yet, she felt closer to me than ever, and I couldn't help but find her a bit cute. After a while, we arrived at her condo. "Kate, we've arrived at your home. Let's get off for now." Then, she suddenly looked up at me. Her face was red up to her ears from being drunk, and her eyes were wet. Looking at me with those eyes, she said,
Walk me to the door.
"Huh?"
Walk me.
Saying that, she clung to me even tighter. Reluctantly, I supported her body and headed towards the entrance, where she said,
"It's okay, come on in."
Then, she puffed her cheeks like a child and dragged me into her room. Kate, are you okay?
My head is spinning.
Finally, it seemed her exhaustion had peaked, and she closed her eyes, lying listlessly on what seemed like an expensive sofa. You'll catch a cold if you stay like this. But all she could do was moan. She probably couldn't even walk anymore. Realizing there was no other option, I picked her up. Despite being a CEO who leads many employees, she was as light as a feather. It's amazing how she pulls everyone along with such a small body. Thinking that, I laid her down on the bed. After covering her with a duvet, I suddenly realized that I probably shouldn't be here. Just as I thought about leaving a note and heading home, a hand stretched out from the bed and grabbed my arm.
"Let's sleep together."
Half opening her eyes and seeming dazed, she invited me. No, no. What are you saying? That's definitely not.
"It's fine. Just let me use you as a body pillow."
That can cross the line. She wouldn't let go of my arm, making me wonder where she was getting such strength. Reluctantly, I got into the bed. She clung to my body tightly like a body pill. I was honestly startled when she even entwined her legs.
"Thank you."
She suddenly thanked me, and I looked towards her. She had her eyes closed. Continuing with her eyes still closed, she said,
"Thank you for always protecting me, for supporting me. I'm really always."
That's not big deal. I'm always the one being helped by you.
That's not true. Even today, getting drunk and you coming to help. I was really happy.
She drifted off to sleep before finishing her sentence. Still clinging to my body, wondering what to do, I eventually closed my eyes. Perhaps due to the exhaustion from traveling in the negotiation, I quickly fell asleep. The next morning, I was awakened by a woman's scream. Opening my eyes, Kate, who had clung to me so tightly before, suddenly pulled away, her eyes wide with shock.
"What are you doing here? Did we make a mistake?"
No, we didn't. No worries. Please listen, I swear. After explaining last night's events, she seemed to understand.
"I'm sorry for troubling you last night."
No, I'm not bothered by it. More importantly, are you all right?
"I'm not bothered either. But I can't believe I made a mistake at a drinking party for the first time in my life."
Seeing her holding her head in what seemed like remorse, I couldn't help but chuckle. My image of the cool Kate was completely shattered since yesterday. I had discovered that she had a very adorable side. And I understood that she was carrying her own set of anxieties as a CEO. As her subordinate, I resolved to support her even more from now on. I made up my mind as an employee. Then the next day, for some reason, I was called to the CEO's office. According to Kate, the president from yesterday's negotiation had communicated that he no longer wished to be involved with our company. It was a complete overreaction, she said.
"It's their loss."
But she also seemed troubled. Our sales performance this quarter wasn't particularly good. We were at risk of going into the red, so it was crucial to secure a contract with a large company. I offered to handle this part of sales myself. I figured I might find something through the connections I had built up. She looked into my eyes. Then, she smiled joyfully. But soon her smile turned sad, as if she was smiling through tears. I was puzzled by the change in her expression when she unexpectedly said something surprising.
"Michael, you don't have a girlfriend, right?"
Well, yeah, that's right.
"I know someone I'd like to introduce you to, if you're interested."
Then, for some reason, she made a call from the president's office. After a knock, the door opened. There was Lily.
What's up, Kate? Calling me to a place like this?
She looked puzzled, glancing back and forth between us.
The person I wanted to introduce you is Lily, standing right there.
I involuntarily raised my voice in surprise. What? Lily also seemed bewildered, not understanding what was happening.
Both of you don't have a partner, right? I've always thought you two would be a good match. How about taking this opportunity to get to know each other better?
Hey, what are you saying? I can't just, if you spring that on me.
Yeah, the thing is, we are just. I had been harboring feelings for her for so long, never imagining such an opportunity would arise. Honestly, I was thrilled. But at that moment, I was more concerned about Kate. I think we should prioritize settling the work at hand first. She looked surprised, then laughed.
What are you talking about? I can handle that much.
No, it's not right to let you shoulder that burden alone.
I understand. Thank you.
She seemed somewhat troubled, even saddened by my words. Afterward, thanks to my desperate sales efforts, we managed to sign new contracts with several companies. It looked like we'd be in the black this fiscal period.
I never imagined we could sign a contract with that renowned company. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. I've been brainstorming with you all along. Over the past month, we have been holed up in the meeting room, continuously working on proposals. We had our disagreements, but overcoming them allowed us to achieve great things.
Now, you can finally go on a date with Lily.
Oh, yes. Being told so by her, I found myself unable to be straightforwardly happy. She watched my reaction with curiosity.
What's the matter? You've liked Lily for a long time, haven't you?
That's true, but how did you know about that?
You can tell. Just by seeing how you look at her.
She then looked sad again. The next day, I went to a cafe with Lily. Even though it was a date, we had been out together many times before since we've known each other for so long. However, being with the person I liked didn't give me the same excitement as before. Wondering why, Lily spoke up.
Are you worried about my sister?
I hesitated at her words. Then, she revealed a shocking truth.
I knew you liked me.
It seemed my feelings had been obvious to her all along. Blushing slightly, she thanked me.
That's nice of you. I'm not really in the mood for a relationship right now. I just want to focus on helping my sister's company succeed.
I see. Yeah. I think that's a good idea.
Sorry, it kind of sounds like I'm rejecting you, doesn't it?
To that, I shook my head no. Her straightforward reason was just like her, and knowing the answer actually made me feel relieved. But what surprised me more was how little I was shocked by it, more than I had imagined. She clearly stated the reason for my feelings.
Because what you're really in love with now is my sister, aren't you?
That is. I might have known the answer deep down. Lately, my mind has been full of thoughts about her. Even now, I wonder if she's doing okay. If her health is all right. If she is not facing anything unpleasant. Those concerns occupy my thoughts constantly. When I shared it, Lily smiled genuinely happy.
My sister is cool, kind, beautiful. I'm proud of her. But she's not good at relying on others. Sometimes she won't even share her worries with me.
Then, looking straight into my eyes, she continued.
If you could take on that role, I couldn't be happier. You know, my sister actually talks about you a lot when she's with me, like, Michael is such a good person, so kind.
Really?
Michael, your face is all red.
Teased by her, I instinctively covered my face with my hands. Later, I went to CEO's office.
How was the date?
I squeezed her hand as she spoke with a forced smile. She immediately blushed.
What is it?
I have something I want to talk to you about. I took a deep breath. And holding her small hand even tighter, I looked straight into her eyes to convey my feelings. I'm in love with you. She was stunned. When I told her again that I loved her, her face turned even redder.
Why? I thought you liked Lily.
Yes, I did. But at some point, I couldn't stop worrying about you, taking on everything by yourself. So, can I support you from now on? Both in work and personally. Lacking any skill in playing games, I simply poured out my feelings. Then with tears in her eyes she hugged me.
I was trying to give up on my feelings for you, introducing Lily. Is it okay, for me? I'm quite a handful, you know?
A handful, because you're needy. She silently nodded several times in my arms. That gesture was so endearing that I pulled her closer. At that moment, there was a knock on the door. Turning around, I saw Lily grinning as she opened the door.
Sorry to interrupt you guys.
Lily!
She quickly stepped away from me.
Kate, you're at work right now, right? I understand how it feels to be blind to your surroundings because you don't have any experience with men, but you have to be aware of the time and place.
Sure, okay, I will.
Are you sure you're okay?
Watching her usually being strict with Lily, now reversed in the context of love, was amusing, and I couldn't help but laugh. Currently, only Lily knows about my relationship with Kate. Considering it's a workplace romance, we decided to keep it a secret to avoid complications. Although, I'm thinking about announcing it to everyone once we're married. My name is Mike. I graduated from a technical college specializing in industrial studies and moved to the big city, New York, at the age of 20. Perhaps due to my impressive performance in the interviews, I, a newcomer, was assigned to work at the headquarters. Worked tirelessly every day for the company. However, an unbelievable incident happened to me. One day, the president of a client company called our headquarters directly. I happened to be the one who answered the phone. Thank you as always for your support. I greeted him as usual. He was a kind-hearted and friendly person, and we sometimes chatted about various things. So, I thought I might hear some interesting story again, but his response was, "Hey, what's going on with this?" I was completely taken aback. Seeing me panic, my boss took over the phone. "Hello, is there any trouble?" he asked while bowing his head repeatedly. The client's yelling was audible through the receiver, so I learned what the issue was. We had made a ridiculous mistake with an order that was due 2 or 3 days ago, miscounting the quantity by 3 digits. After hanging up, my boss informed everyone about the situation, and all employees turned pale. If we lose this client, our company might face bankruptcy. I wondered what would happen, watching the boss who took over the call. Yes. The one who made the ordering mistake was my boss. I was in charge initially, but he took over it. Suddenly, my boss pointed at me and said, "The mistake was his fault." I was stunned. I never imagined I would be blamed so easily for a mistake I haven't made. "No, that's not true. The one who made the mistake is." I tried to argue back, but my boss immediately shouted, "Shut up. Don't make excuses," and didn't give me a chance to defend myself. Eventually, comparing the experienced boss and me, a young employee, everyone believed his words. I had to apologize to everyone, pressing my forehead to the dirty floor. Fortunately, the client didn't end our contract, but I was demoted from the headquarters as a form of taking responsibility for the mistake. That night, when I saw the demotion letter, I cried all night in frustration. My new assignment was a simple assembly work on a conveyor belt. A job usually done by part-timers or contractors. It seemed like my boss had been scheming behind the scenes. I was labeled as the young guy who almost destroyed the company to the outside world. So even the other employees in the assembly section treated me as a nuisance. Should I resign? Back then I have seriously considered resigning. To relieve stress, I relied heavily on alcohol. I was fine during last year's medical checkup, but next year might be risky. But with such a work environment, I couldn't give up drinking. Recently, unpaid overtime has become the norm. I felt my zest for life gradually diminishing. So, it became my routine to buy alcohol at the supermarket near my office. One day, after finishing my overtime work, I drove my old car to the supermarket as usual. Finishing my groceries, as I was about to leave the supermarket, it suddenly started to rain. I remember hearing about a hurricane approaching on the news, but it seemed to arrive earlier than expected. This is serious, I better head home quickly. Thinking of it, I just then noticed a woman looking troubled and gazing up at the sky.
Hey, isn't that Miss Smith?
I couldn't help but call out.
Good evening.
Ms. Smith noticed me and bowed her head slightly. Her name is Susan Smith. She works as an office clerk at the same company I was transferred to. Ms. Smith is a very quiet person and doesn't talk much with others. I've only ever talked to her about work. It was my first time seeing her in casual clothes.
You're caught in the rain, huh?
I asked.
Yes, actually, I came by bike.
She replied. The rain was indeed too heavy for biking, especially with the hurricane approaching.
Do you have anyone who can pick you up?
I asked. She said no.
I can give you a ride if you'd like, I have a car.
I offered without thinking too much. She seemed surprised. Looking at her reaction, I thought I might have spoken too casually. Regretting it, thinking it might be presumptuous for her to get into a man's car. But she smiled and said,
Thank you. I'd appreciate that.
In the car, I asked her address. And I was surprised to hear the address sounded familiar. Turns out, she lived in the house next to my apartment. Ms. Smith, usually stoic, looked surprised too.
What a coincidence.
We chatted for some while, but then silence took over. She stared blankly out the window. And I sneakily glanced at her. At first glance, she seemed plain, but with her round face and clear skin, I thought she'd be pretty cute if she wore makeup. I was a bit nervous. The conversation dwindled, and we arrived at her house amidst an awkward silence. When saying goodbye, Ms. Smith smiled and thanked me, but I realized I had forgotten something important.
You know, without your bike, it'll be tough for you to get to work tomorrow, right? I can drive you.
I offered, feeling quite proactive. Ms. Smith seemed hesitant, feeling it might be too much to ask, but I reassured her it was no problem. She smiled again and accepted my offer. The next day, I, who usually wake up just in time, got up early and even styled my hair. What am I, all excited about? I thought, but I still left a bit earlier than the agreed time. The sky was clear and bright. The hurricane had passed during the night. When I headed to the parking lot, Ms. Smith was already there waiting.
Good morning. Thanks again for today.
Dutifully arriving even earlier than me. She's such a serious person, I thought, with a bit of a grin. On our way, I suggested that after work, I drive her to the supermarket to pick up her bike that she left there the previous day. Ms. Smith thanked me again, feeling sorry for the hassle. I thought to myself, well, this might be our last drive together, feeling a bit sad about it. Luckily, there was no overtime work that day, so we were able to meet up on time. Readily headed to the supermarket to see a shocking scene.
My bike.
Ms. Smith murmured sadly. And true enough, the bike she had parked at the supermarket last night was utterly destroyed by the hurricane, broken into pieces.
I'll drive you home today too. And we can take your broken bike with us.
I offered.
I'm so sorry.
She apologized.
No, it's totally fine. In fact, I'll drive you until you get a new bike.
I insisted. She seemed hesitant, but eventually accepted my offer with gratitude. This extended our daily drives a bit longer. Spending time together in the car every morning and evening, we gradually became more comfortable with each other. Slowly, spending time with Ms. Smith became the highlight of my day. One day, after work, we stopped by the supermarket as usual. I picked up some beer and a dinner box for myself.
Do you always eat boxed meals?
She asked.
Yeah, I'm not good with cooking.
I replied with a sheepish smile. Then she offered.
Would it be all right if I cook dinner for you tonight as a way of saying thank you?
I was so surprised and exclaimed.
Really? That would be great.
She modestly said she could only make simple dishes, but of course, I wouldn't turn down her offer. That night, I savored Ms. Smith's cooking at my place. The pork salad she made was delightful. As a way of returning her kindness, I asked her out on a date. Gradually, we grew closer and eventually started dating. I began calling her by her first name, Susan. After dating Susan, the world seemed to change for me. I was once laughed at by the other workers, but now, I felt motivated to do even the simplest tasks with all my might. Using my experience from the headquarters, I proposed efficiency improvements to the factory manager. Initially, my suggestions were dismissed, but Susan's support helped me overcome these adversities. With that in mind, I pushed through adversity. Eventually, my persistent efforts paid off, and the proposed improvements were implemented. This resulted in reduced overtime and the saved budget was added to everyone's salary. From being an outcast, I was now called the savior by my colleagues. Susan supported me through all this, celebrating our successes together. I was overjoyed by this. 2 years passed. I was invited back to the headquarters due to my performance at the factory. With Susan by my side, I had regained my spirit and had become a key player at the factory. My achievements were recognized. When I told Susan about this, she was thrilled but also said, "It's sad that we won't be working at the same place." Seeing her reaction, I decided to propose.
Will you marry me? Please stay by my side forever.
Holding her hand, I conveyed my feelings. She looked serious and began to open up about herself.
I'm not sure if I can be happy.
Susan's father was a chronic cheater, and her parents fought constantly. Her mother often expressed regret for marrying such a man, resenting him bitterly, which Susan overheard. Eventually, her parents divorced, and Susan was taken in by her mother. She hoped for a peaceful life then, but it didn't turn out that way. Her mother began to lash out at Susan, blaming her for the divorce and even resorting to violence. Susan was confused and hurt, unable to understand why her mother, who regretted her marriage so much, would suddenly say such things. Still, when her mother calmed down, she would apologize and embrace Susan, making it hard for her to leave despite her age. But after friends pointed out that she was experiencing domestic violence, Susan finally left, despite her mother's pleas. These experiences made her question the meaning of marriage and love. And
even though I love you, when I think of my parents, I'm worried that you will abandon me.
thinking like that made her feel anxious. If something happens to me, she thinks it's all her fault, and she's filled with guilt. Susan doubted her ability to be happy, to love and raise children. Fearing she would make me unhappy. I was shocked to hear about her past. However, when I saw her shaking her small shoulders, I couldn't help but hug her.
Thank you for sharing your painful past, Susan. I still want to marry you,
I said, and shared my own story. I talked about how painful it was when my boss blamed me for a mistake, but I couldn't do anything about it and everyone made me feel like a nuisance. Hearing it, Susan was surprised. That's obvious. As I had never spoken of it before. It was a tough time. Back then I was seriously considering for resignation. But that time, I started relationship with her, which allowed me to come over to the situation which already has occurred and start looking forward. I told her that because I was able to meet her I was able to restart again.
I won't cheat, Susan. Let's be happy together.
I reassured her, and she cried in my arms. 3 years later, we welcomed a new family member. Susan's personality brightened. No, in fact, he became more spunky than before and said,
Hey, Mike. I told you to go cook the rice right.
And she started making a scary face and I said,
Yes, yes. I'm sorry.
I am being used every day in my own way. Damn it, I never heard that she was such a scary wife. I wanted to complain, but she said with a smile,
Yes, you. Today's lunch. And for dinner, I'll have pork salad.
When she says that, I realize how glad we were to get married. As for my former boss who blamed me for his mistake, he was fired before I returned to the headquarters. Apparently, the year after I was demoted, he made another big mistake and tried to make up for it, but this time he failed, which was a fitting end for a coward. But for me, with my happy family, it's all irrelevant. Cheating. My life is filled with work, my wife, our child. Also beer, and her cooking. There's no room for anyone else. My name is Daniel Smith. I'm a regular office worker, now in my 3rd year since joining the company. The time since graduating from college has flown by in a blink. I've experienced meetings with trustworthy superiors and faced setbacks. There were days I was determined to prove myself. All of these moments have been essential for me. I find myself alone in the office, staring at the ceiling. If you keep conveying your feelings sincerely, they'll surely respond. Reminding myself of a saying that has kept me going. I close my eyes and reflect on everything from the day I joined the company until now. I had a vague idea that a career in sales would be challenging before I even started. I was prepared, but the actual difficulty of the job was beyond my imagination. I had to listen to various clients' needs, and find companies that could fulfill their requests. To put it simply, that's what my job entails. The work itself involves juggling different interests, and keeping everyone happy is part of the challenge. Yet, I found satisfaction in my job. Having been in the American football team during college, I was confident in my mental strength. Contrary to my positive attitude, I struggled to deliver results at work. I wondered if I was unsuited for the job or just not yet accustomed to it. I was a slow learner, feeling the pressure of the gap with my peers. The more desperately I tried, the worse things seemed to go. It was a vicious cycle. However, I was fortunate with my supervisor. Sarah Johnson, my tutor at work, was strict when needed and kind when necessary.
How have you been doing lately? If you're struggling with anything, feel free to ask me.
I'm actually looking for a store that deals in Asian-style products, but I'm having trouble finding one.
In such cases, it might be faster to check with department store contacts than looking for someone in charge directly.
Exactly. I'll try that, thanks.
If you have any problems again, ask me anything. By the way, are you going to have fast food again today? Didn't you bring your homemade lunch before?
I've been so busy lately that I don't feel like making anything.
There's a deli near the office that's affordable and healthy.
I guess there was a place like that. I didn't know about it.
It's an old store that's not even on the map app. I'll take you there sometime.
Oh really? Thank you very much.
Sarah always looked out for me. Not just with work but also with personal matters. She's covered for my mistakes numerous times. She was not only helpful to me but also actively supported other colleagues in need. I respected her not just as a supervisor but as a person. I was really fortunate with my supervisor. From what I heard from my peers, other supervisors were quite strict. Some colleagues were left to fend for themselves, or suffered from harsh comments, affecting their morale. I had been envied many times about Sarah being my boss. I was grateful for my environment and had set 2 goals for myself. One was to excel as a salesperson and repay Sarah for her support. The other was to become like her, someone who can handle their own responsibilities while helping others. I deeply respected her.
It's okay. Have confidence. If you keep conveying your feelings sincerely, they'll surely respond.
It was her favorite saying. But no matter how great my supervisor was, the fact remained that I was struggling with my work. Despite all the support, I couldn't improve my performance significantly. Dwelling on it wouldn't help. At that time, I focused on increasing the number of sales visits I made. I might have been a bit reckless, but that go-getter attitude gave me a chance. It felt like luck was finally on my side. It was a business deal with a super famous company. Something I proposed despite expecting a rejection. Surprisingly, their response was that they wanted to work with us. Despite initiating the sales pitch, I was stunned by this unexpected turn of events. It took me a while to fully grasp that the deal was actually happening. Instead of feeling joy at finally securing a deal, I was overwhelmed. The company was renowned. A large corporation with global business. Frankly, I felt unfit for such a significant task. What seemed like an opportunity for others felt like a huge challenge for me. Upon confirming the deal via email, I contacted Sarah. Immediately sending message to her for advice, she promptly arranged a time to meet.
Thanks for reaching out. So, what's up?
Actually, I laid it all out. The deal with the famous company. And my doubts about handling it. She initially listened with joy. But I sensed her expression clouding over. Yet, I continued, desperately needing her help.
Sarah, I hate to ask, but can you help me with this?
It was a plea I could only make to her, trusting her willingness to cooperate. However, her response surprised me. It was a troubled, pained expression I'd never seen before. I worried I had said something wrong. After a brief silence, she said.
Okay. I'll help you.
I was relieved to have her support. Despite her seemingly reluctant demeanor. Maybe she was busy with other tasks. Still, having her assistance was reassuring. Despite her unusual reaction, I went home feeling relieved. The next day at the office, I faced the unimaginable. The major deal I had landed. It was now under Sarah's name. My request for support had somehow erased my involvement. It felt like my opportunity had been snatched away. Joking. Confused and speechless, I confronted Sarah as she passed by nonchalantly. I asked her reflectively,
Sarah, what's going on with this?
Oh, the deal we discussed yesterday? I thought it'd be quicker if I handled it.
But, that was my deal.
In the competitive world of sales, it's your fault for talking too much. Working with such a big company could have changed your reputation here.
Why are you doing that? You were always so kind.
I'm a salesperson too, grabbing any chance I get.
That's a lie, isn't it?
I don't want to talk about this anymore.
With that, she forced the conversation to end and went somewhere else. I was in disbelief. The supervisor I respected seemed like a different person. My colleagues said it's common for supervisors to take over deals secured by their subordinates. It seems like everyone has the same experience. But that was Sarah, always supportive and considerate, in both work and personal matters. Perhaps I relied on her too much. I understood it might have been too convenient to expect my job to be supported exclusively. But I thought Sarah would have at least told me that. I felt betrayed by someone I respected both as a colleague and as a person. It made me question if this is what the world of sales is really like. That day, I hit rock bottom. Feeling utterly down. But the next day, my spirits ignited. I decided not to rely on anyone else. I had to do it on my own. I was determined to prove her wrong. I completely revamped my approach to sales, which had been somewhat lackadaisical until then. I spent every waking hour researching and refining my sales tactics. Studying alone wasn't enough. I increased my field visits, alternating between research and practice. Despite numerous failures, I kept pushing without time to feel discouraged. 2 months after the split with Sarah, I finally secured a major deal, the first since the one that was stolen from me. A launch project for a well-known hotel. It involved supporting the operations of the opening ceremony, specifically handling the culinary aspects for the commemorative event. I was responsible for finding companies to supply cakes and sweets. The scale of the business was as large as the company itself. Unlike before, I felt excited. Not needing support from Sarah or any other colleague. It was my job, and I was going to make it a success on my own. While facing sales, I discovered my own knack for making deals. Offering run-of-the-mill proposals was pointless. Instead, unique ideas that only I could suggest were more likely to catch a client's interest. With that strategy, I started my search. Not just any store making bulk orders of cakes would do. Nor would a renowned sweet shop with a pastry chef be impactful enough. Leveraging my newcomer status, I decided to look from a younger perspective. I began my research primarily on Instagram. And discovered a personal sweet shop that, though not widely known in the industry, had a solid following and high-quality products. The vibrancy of their creations was evident even from their photos online. After ordering some of their goods for tasting, I found the flavors to match their high quality. When I proposed that to the hotel, they responded positively. I felt a strong sense of achievement. The only step left was to get the sweet shop on board. Of course, I knew it wouldn't be easy, and it wasn't. For a small, individually run shop, accepting a large order was a significant undertaking. They had few employees, and simple financial compensation wouldn't be enough. I visited the shop repeatedly, negotiating persistently. I also worked with the hotel to create an environment that offered more than just monetary benefits. That included opportunities for future events and advertising space within the hotel. Fueled by my passion and these additional perks, the sweet shop owner finally agreed. It was the moment of success in a major business deal. If you keep conveying your feelings sincerely, they'll surely respond. Sarah's words, which had stayed with me even after the betrayal. It seemed to ring true in this deal. By honestly and respectfully conveying my thoughts to both the hotel and the sweet shop, I made the deal happen. Subsequent procedures went smoothly, including perfect schedule management for delivery. After confirming the shipment of the goods from the sweet shop, I exhaled deeply in the office. With that, my job was 90% complete. I felt relieved and proceeded with the final preparations for after the goods' arrival. About an hour later, it was around the end of the work. As I was getting ready to leave, my work phone rang. A call at this time was almost certainly an emergency. With trepidation, I answered the phone, only to face an unforeseen event. The truck carrying our products had been in an accident. Thankfully, the driver wasn't seriously injured, and the cargo seemed to be intact. However, the delivery wouldn't make it to the hotel's ceremony in time. Overwhelmed, I buried my head in my hands at my desk. After all my efforts and everything going so well, to fail due to bad luck. I was so lost in despair that I didn't notice someone approaching from behind.
You okay, there, handling it all alone?
Sarah. I hadn't spoken to her since the day she took over the business deal. We had been avoiding each other, but now she was here, speaking warmly and kindly as she used to. My mind was spinning with the unexpected developments.
Let's first inform the hotel about the situation and apologize. Can you handle that, Daniel?
Yes. I understand.
Great. Then I'll contact some shipping companies I've worked with before and see if they can pick up and deliver the cakes. Once you're done with the call, help me out, okay?
Yes. Of course. Thank you.
It was like when I first joined the company, having her there. So reassuring. I had so many questions, but for now, we focused on handling the emergency. We called several shipping companies, but given the late hour, it was tough to find one. Asking for immediate assistance was indeed a challenge. After being turned down by all, Sarah suggested we directly visit a nearby shipping company. If we keep conveying our feelings sincerely, they'll surely respond. Her usual saying echoed as we headed out.
Starting now. Well, I've been indebted to you before. Understood.
Really? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
The sincerity paid off. The next day, the cakes arrived at the hotel. And the opening ceremony went off without a hitch, all thanks to Sarah's help. Back in the office, after confirming the event's success, I thanked her and finally addressed the question that had been bothering me.
Sarah, why did you help me? After turning so cold all of a sudden.
I'm sorry, Daniel. I wanted to support you more, but I thought you wouldn't become independent if I did.
So it was intentional.
Yes, I'm truly sorry.
She said, apologizing sincerely. It was hard to accept immediately. But indeed, that betrayal had driven me to grow as an employee.
But you didn't have to take over my work.
I know, but the client you brought in was known for crushing newcomers. I knew you'd face unreasonable difficulties if it continued.
So, all of that was to protect me.
She smiled bashfully. Understanding her reasons, I felt a sense of relief, almost moved to tears. She had always acted for my benefit.
I always say to convey feelings sincerely, but I wasn't honest with you, Daniel. I'm really sorry.
I'm sorry too. I relied on you too much.
With the misunderstanding cleared, we stood stronger. I had become fully capable as an employee, raising my standing in the company. It was all thanks to her. She was still the person I admired the most. Time passed, and it's almost 5 years since I joined the company. Sarah and I are still working together, now as top performers. And more than that, she's becoming my life partner. We've been dating for 2 years now. Today, on my way home from work, I'm planning to propose to Sarah. It's time for me to be not just the one protected but also the one who protects her.